So today I get the pleasure of interviewing this amazing man. Most of us know him from the movie Forks Over Knives. He is the director of research at the True North Health Center. He's the psychologist for the McDougall Wellness Program. He's got that website, esteemdynamics.org, and you do counseling, right?
Sure.
And you're also the co-author of The Pleasure Trap. So wow, thank you for taking the time to meet with me today.
Oh, pleasure to be here, Jeanne.
Well, I have a Facebook group, and we're going to start a 10-day challenge. We're going to follow the McDougall maximum weight loss. And
Good.
for people that are new to this or that are jumping into it, what suggestions can you make to help them prepare themselves, their environment? What suggestions can you give us?
Well, one thing that I would do is I would probably spend a couple of days before you start getting prepared. So that means sort of having some little lists together. If you're going to do this 10 days, what we're going to be facing is we're going to be facing basically 30 meals. So it's a finite number of problems to solve. And so if we can simplify breakfast probably very easily.
Right.
So that's going to take us down to 20 problems to solve.
Mm-hmm.
And so of those 20 problems, we can probably double it 2 or 3 times on certain meals.
Mm-hmm.
So we're probably down to 8 problems, say. So essentially, we have to get ready for 8 different decisions with respect to our meals, and that needs to be where we spend a couple of days deciding, what are we going to be eating these next 10 days, and to get ready, get prepared, so that we're not caught short without the ingredients that we need to make this happen.
Excellent. How about like purging? What do you think about cleaning that stuff that shouldn't be eaten?
That's fine. That's sort of an A+ student. If you take all that stuff out of the house, if you could do that socially, depending upon who's in your house.
Right.
If there isn't anybody in your house and the people that are there are supportive, then absolutely, I think that is a very good idea to do that in those sort of a couple of prep days. Just say goodbye to it. It's not like it's gone forever. You can go back and restock the whole thing full of a bunch of crap, when you're done, if you want to. But it's a good thing to sort of burn the ships and make yourself have to face this new territory. And so I think that's a good idea.
Well, because I know if it's in my house, I'm eating it. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, for somebody who has been eating the SAD diet, the standard American diet,
Sure.
SAD, yeah. What changes could they see in 10 days? I mean, this is somebody who has not been plant-based and they're transitioning, they're getting rid of the animal products, the oils. What can they see? What kind of changes can they expect to see in their health or their body?
The problem is that everybody's going to be different. Usually, the McDougall program, this is what we see. So we see people coming in, a lot of times they will have the last supper, the night before they got in, and they will have stopped at, Steak and Stein or wherever it is that they stop.
Okay.
So when they come in, they're used to eating a conventional diet, and they've maybe started drifting in a healthy direction, but they really haven't taken it on in any very consistent fashion. Mm-hmm. And so it's a change. It takes more of the determination to be willing to run this experiment. And the people that come to the McDougall program are willing to run the experiment because they're paying a lot of money and they're taking a lot of time out of their lives. So the commitment is huge. But very often the people that come have some very significant health problems they are trying to resolve and get some control over. Mm-hmm. And they have read something that has convinced them or listened to John, and they're basically thinking that this is likely to work, and therefore I have to go face it. And so sometimes it's going to be people frustrated with their body and they want to lose weight. And so that's a major impetus, and that's fine too. And again, the commitment in terms of both time and money is very substantial. So we don't find them sneaking across the street, to get a candy bar. They recognize that they're in rehab, and that that they take it very seriously. And so the nice thing about having a support group and doing this out of the world on your own is that you're actually facing the work that our people face a week after they get home. We hand down the appropriate things to do right in front of them, and so therefore it's very easy for them to get on track. And then when they make those changes, obviously that week, a lot of things happen. They'll typically take people off their medications because they're not going to need a lot of those medications. They very often people's digestion improves, constipation improves. People a lot of times get a little bit better general circulation, and their head feels a little clearer. They feel more energetic. A lot of good things can happen in even 10 days. But it's just the beginning, and it takes some getting used to, and it takes getting used to the notion that your meal is very complete by the time you've eaten some whole natural carbohydrates, and that we aren't going to now stick our fork in a bunch of high fat, high protein animal food to get that sort of feeling of satiation. That the satiation can be very, very acceptable with rice, beans, and potatoes, which is where it is that this whole thing's headed.
Right. Oh, excellent. Thank you. Before somebody begins this, should they let their doctor know what they're doing, that they're changing to a whole food plant-based diet? And will that doctor even know what a whole food plant-based diet is?
Yeah, I don't think most doctors would think much of this one way or the other. I don't think they probably have strong feelings about it. Most of the thoughts that they have are incorrect. In other words, they're not educated in this arena. They think they're educated because they've read a little bit here and there, but they actually don't have the picture. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to typically think diet is pretty ineffectual, which of course it usually is, because almost anything that anybody's switching to isn't significantly different from anything else. So when most people move their diets around, they're substituting chicken for fish, or they're substituting fish for beef, or who knows what it is that they're doing. But the bottom line is they're not doing anything that is really substantive from the standpoint of macronutrient, balance change. Right. And so this is a big change. And so as a result, there can be some pretty substantial changes in what happens to people. Blood sugar levels can drop quite substantially. Cholesterol levels can drop quite substantially. Blood pressure can drop substantially. So those are sort of three parameters that we like to look at in terms of what can happen. Now, for most people, this isn't a problem at all. Everything goes in the correct direction. But for some people, if you're a person that's on fairly heavy medications for blood sugar, for example, for diabetes, then you should probably check with your doctor, because there's a good chance that this blood sugar could drop fairly substantially in a week, and as a result, you could be over-medicated, and that's not a good thing. So I would definitely talk to your doctor and err on the side of anticipating a positive benefit of the diet in terms of reducing blood sugar levels, so that the doctor can reduce your medication dose for the time that you're going to do this. Right.
Well, of course, if they stick with it, then, that's great. Sure. But if they go back, then their medication needs will probably go back up.
Right. So. And medication with respect to blood sugar is blood sugar is not some horrendous thing that if it goes high, it's going to hurt you. The big problem is that if it goes too low, suddenly that can be devastating. And so what we want to guard against is some tragedy where someone is over-medicated and then winds up changing their diet, and the diet drives their blood sugar levels towards normal, and now the medication drives their blood sugars subnormal, and then we get a crisis. So there is not going to be a crisis with high blood sugar levels, not unless you're an extraordinary person that runs your blood sugars into the 500s or some such astronomical thing. Moderate elevated blood sugar levels that are not, quote, adequately medicated are not threatening to human beings. They run those for decades, for God's sakes. Mm-hmm. So I'm not worried about people having their blood sugar a little high because they're on less medication. I'm worried about it being too low because
Right.
the diet is so effective and can be very effective. You never know what's going to happen in an individual case, but blood sugar levels are not uncommonly plummeting when we improve the diet.
Excellent. Uh, Evening is a tough time. I mean, it's just, I hear the food calling me in, the other room. It's singing to me. Or I'll hear my husband, he'll come home and he'll get a bowl of cereal and he'll start eating something. Or I hear crunching. Oh my God, crunching is... What can I do? Help me here, Doug?
Well, the big problem is that you have to see to it that there isn't junk food in the house. And
Right.
so and quite frankly, on a maximum weight loss diet, cereal is not on that diet.
Right. Right.
So there we have a problem. And so if we realize that none of these problems exist in a natural environment, so no animal ever systematically overeats. It doesn't happen. So that's just not what they do. And neither did humans. So humans did not systematically overeat. The only time human beings overeat is if there's unnatural food in the environment. Okay, so that is the problem. So people are constantly trying to have the conversation that says, yes, but how do I step around the problem? And my answer is, you don't. You don't step around the problem. You get rid of the problem. Okay, so there is no end to twisting and turning to try to figure out the psychological tricks that are supposed to enable us to base this thing and fix it. The bottom line is that there aren't psychological tricks because you are not designed to actually solve this problem. You're designed with a very singular motivational device in your head around food. Eat the richest food that there is in the environment, period. Any subject. That's what you're designed to do. And so if there's a bunch of processed cereal with soy milk and bonbons and vegan cheese and whatever it is that's in the refrigerator, trust me, it's going to wind up going down your hatch. That's what will happen. So now, for people that have people in their house that they're going to be battling this, they say, well, what am I supposed to do? Answer, good luck. It isn't that it can't be done, but it's going to be a lot harder. Yeah, it's going to be much harder. So it's going to be, you're going to have that same program running in your head. It says, yes, but where's the rich food? Now it's a little late and I'm still a little bit hungry and I know there's rich food around. Let me tell you why it is such a tremendous pull. This isn't just because you're weak. It's going to turn out that on our natural history, once in a while, we came into some rich food. So once in a while, somebody made a kill. Once in a while, somebody the nuts and avocado or salmon or something in the environment was rich and was available. When that was true, it was incumbent upon you to eat it very aggressively. Okay, the reason why you needed to eat it very aggressively, even if you are full, you are completely full, you are still designed to eat it aggressively until it's gone. The reason is that if you do that, it statistically increases your likelihood of survival because you are living in an environment of caloric scarcity.
Right, feast or famine.
You need to be very aggressive about it. And the reason why you need to be aggressive is because the other people in the environment are going to be aggressive. So effectively, there's an arms race between you and the other people in the environment to make sure that you swallow at least your share, if not more, of the food.
Right.
Because we're thinking the same thing, this gets ferocious. And so this is why people don't understand why after dinner, if they got a sack of cookies in the pantry, they eat the whole sack of cookies. Like they start going through the cookies and then they downtown 2,000 calories worth of cookies in 20 minutes watching the football game. And they were full after they'd already eaten a healthy dinner.
Right.
Why did that happen? This is the ferocious consumption of high calorie value materials that would always happen in the Stone Age. In other words, this is a program that sits inside your nervous system waiting for that situation to come up. Well, if you put that situation in your environment 24/7, 365 days a year, it's going to go up. Okay, It's just like that is simply how you're built. So, can you get around it? Yes, with extraordinary self-discipline and a lot of internal cognitive dissonance. You can step your way through this, but you're stepping through a minefield. The real solution is to change the environment.
Okay.
If we change the environment, we change the amount of pressure on your head. If the only cereal is down at the store and you're not at the store, then it's not worth the trouble.
Right. Right.
So that's the best solution we have to that problem.
Okay. Clean it out. Clean sweep. Alrighty. We're going to connect during the day in our group on Facebook. We're going to be posting things, what we've eaten, take pictures. We're going to have a day where it's a new recipe day. Go out and find something new, something to try, because a lot of times we get into this rut, and sometimes that's okay, but, just to kind of spice it up. But that's on the public side. But on the private side, we're going to have a back side where we're going to have a chat room. And so throughout the day, we're going to chat and connect with each other, and then try sometime, like about 9 o'clock in the evening, to just sit down, kind of reflect on how was your day? How did you do? Did you find any problems? I know Dr. McDougall talks about a support group. Why is this so important?
Well, it isn't necessarily so important. It depends on the personalities. And so a lot of people are kind of loners, and they just kind of want to quietly do things on their own. And they don't want a lot of turbulence around, and they're more introverted, and that's what they do. There are people that have a much greater desire and need for social affiliation. This was discovered by Stanley Schachter 60 years ago in laboratory experiments. And so if you happen to be a more highly affiliative kind of a person, then this is going to be very good for you. So I think that people will self-select in the same way that they do for all other things. So some people like crazy, screeching rock music, and other people like Mozart. And so people just have individual differences. And so I think that your people will find when people that like this and it feels good to them and is useful to them, those are the people who will sort of stick with this and will look forward to this process and enjoy it. And other folks aren't going to be built for it, and that's fine. No problem. So if it turns out you're not quite as social as you were thinking, and that this wasn't for you, no problem. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just natural individual variation.
Right. Okay. Well, I know you wrote an entire book about the pleasure trap, and can you give us like the Reader's Digest condensed version, and what can we do to avoid it?
Well, the Reader's Digest version is that you were not designed for the environment that you find yourself in. Okay, so that every creature has its own design, and it was designed for a particular environment. And the environment that we were designed for didn't have any processed food in it, and it didn't have any drugs in it, and it didn't have any Las Vegas. And so when you put essentially what we're going to call supernormal stimuli, stimuli that were never in the environment before, and you concoct them unnaturally, then you wind up essentially controlling that nervous system. And that's exactly what the pleasure trap is. It's a trap. So essentially, if pleasure is a sign of biological success, then extreme pleasure seems like it's a sign of extreme biological success. It's not. Extreme pleasure is a sign that you've been walked into a trap. That trap may be heroin, it may be methamphetamine, it may be cocaine, it may be alcohol, it may be cigarettes, it may be processed food. And so what we see evidence of the trap by either the mental or physical operations being compromised. So we see an epidemic of some kind of a problem. That tells us that the pleasure trap has been operating, and that the behavior has been inconsistent with the natural history of the organism. When we look at people today in the United States, we see the most obvious change is that they're overweight. And so that is not something that is consistent with animal nature. So that must mean that something changed, and that something that changed turns out to be the diet. Now, interestingly enough, people have been thinking that it is a lack of exercise because we're more sedentary. Turns out that was recently disproved definitively by advances in the science of physiology. That we now know that exercise deprivation is not the cause of excess weight. Turns out that all animals, not just people, but all animals have effectively a caloric budget that they're going to burn every day. So if you're an average-sized female, you're going to burn about 1,900 calories a day. And you can burn a little bit less if you're completely sedentary. So if you do nothing but sit in front of the television, you'll burn about 1,700 or so. If you do some moderate walking around the block, no big deal, then you'll burn 1,900. If you run a marathon, you'll burn 1,900. So this is the shocking news that
Really?
you're right. It won't make any difference how much exercise you do. You will not exceed your daily caloric budget. Okay? So it turns out that what will happen is where you will get the energy in order to do that prodigious amount of exercise will not be from calories. What will happen is you will steal it from other functions of the body, like your immune system, for example.
Okay.
This is an extraordinary development in our understanding. And so it lays the problem of excess fat solely at the base of diet.
Wow.
It's no for diet and exercise. Okay? It is exercise to the point that you cannot be completely sedentary, but after we are not completely sedentary, it turns out that the problem is entirely diet. So this is fascinating and important news. It's in this month or last month, Scientific American.
Nice.
These are right there, plain as day. Drop dead, checkmate. There's no way around these results. They find them trans-species. It's a biology-wide phenomenon about how biology works that nobody knew until now.
Wow.
So now we know. It's been very suspicious. This is what John McDougall's been saying for 30 years. Walk around the block, after that, forget it. Okay? Somehow he had an intuition about this, and so he was right on target. And so the Covert Daily and all the people that are all about exercise turn out to be absolutely dead wrong. Okay, so if you're trying to lose 40 pounds, there is exactly one way to do it. It is not going to be in the gym 4 hours a day. That won't happen. That will not get it done at all. The only thing that's going to get this done is to eat less calories. And the only way we're going to eat less calories is we're going to have calories of lower calorie density, or we're going to restrict calories through willpower. And so my attitude is restricting calories through willpower is fundamentally a losing game, because sooner or later you're going to want to eat to satisfaction.
You're going to break.
Yes. So the solution winds up being entirely at the base of we have to change what we eat, and that's the hard, coal mine that we have to dig through on the McDougall diet. You've got to get used to these healthier foods that are not as high a caloric density, and your nervous system won't like it, just like it doesn't like if you're addicted to cocaine. It doesn't like giving up cocaine. If you're addicted to coffee, it doesn't like giving up coffee. It fights you on this, and it will fight you as you give up very high fat, high sugar processed foods. But if you do, and you get to the other end of it, just like anybody that's ever quit smoking, suddenly they breathe better, feel better, and everything's better. And the same thing is true when we give up super normal junk food. As we give up a super rich diet, we want much healthier, we feel better, and our weight will regulate, and that is the solution to this problem.
I've heard, people argue with me, oh, don't you need to have some fat in your diet?
Yes, you do. You have to have some fat in your diet. You need about 5% of your calories from fat, and it turns out that that's easily had by natural foods. And so, of course, you need fat in your diet, and it's in there. There's fat in a potato. So there's fat in salad greens. So you just don't see it. It's not a bunch of olive oil being poured all over your salad.
Right.
That's pure fat in massive quantities that would have never happened in nature. So you need some fat, but you don't need anything that looks like fat, smells like fat, and tastes like fat. It's already in the food, all the fat that you need.
So is there any nutritional value to, like, say, olive oil?
None. No, this is just pure, nothing other than just pure excess that's put in the system. And whenever you put something in the system that is unnatural, it's disturbing the inherent balance that the system would normally have. And so you've tilted the diet towards being too rich, and we put weight on people. So if you put a teaspoon of olive oil on your salad, at the end of the year, if you started that as a habit, I guarantee you, if all other things were equal, you'd be fatter. Now, how much fatter you'd be is going to be an interaction of your genetics with that situation, but you will be fatter than you were a year before. And if you stop putting that teaspoon of olive oil in your diet, a year from today, when we look at the scoreboard, we'll find that there's less fat on you. And so this is how it is that we have to manage this problem.
A lot of people tend to want to weigh themselves on a day-to-day basis. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that it's fine depending upon your personality. If you think that this is going to give you any meaningful feedback, it's a mistake. So the truth of the matter is that the kind of weight loss that we expect to see when it's being done properly is fairly subtle, could never be detected on a day-to-day basis. So we would expect people to lose maybe a few ounces a day. So in a week, it might be true that someone might lose as much as a pound, or 2 pounds of fat would be really high. If a person was quite overweight and they'd been on a horrible diet and they'd gone to a healthy diet, they might lose a couple of pounds. That would be probably the maximum that anybody would ever lose in terms of fat. Now, the problem is when people go on a healthier diet, they might lose 10 pounds in a week. And then they think that that's how it goes, but you're not losing 10 pounds of fat, you're losing 9 pounds of water.
Yeah.
Right? So the point is that I actually am not that interested in people looking at the scale, because the scale has so many problems inherent to use that as a feedback mechanism. The only way that I have people use the scale is I have them measure themselves 3 times at the beginning of a month, 3 days in a row, take the average, and then at the end of the month, do it 3 times in a row again. So at the end of a month, if we are down on average a couple, 2, 3, or 4 pounds, we are doing a great job. You need to understand that if you actually lose 2 pounds of fat in a month, that means you've lost about 7,000 to 8,000 calories off of you, and you've done that in 30 days, which means you've been at a caloric deficit. You're cannibalizing about 250 calories a day. That's outstanding. That is really, really good. And remember, we're not in a rush to get this done. If you're in a rush to get it done, then just restrict your caloric intake and white knuckle it. That's what everybody does. Okay? That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to look back a year from now and be down 25 or 30 pounds, and be down permanently. So we made these permanent dietary changes where we're never going to gain the weight again. In order to do that, this has to do with sort of a steady change that we make towards this healthier diet as we move things into the diet that have been, too scarce in our diet, and as we push away things that don't belong in the diet and pull things in that belong in the diet. As we morph the diet towards a more natural diet, our weight will regulate, and it will regulate permanently. So this is all about not being in a rush. This is what I call the slow, fast way. And I did a webinar that's on the Google website called the Slow Fast Way. I did it last spring. And that's a nice ancillary teaching tool, support tool for people that are heading into your program.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Can you give us any other tips that can help us?
Oh, there's so many. That's why we have these webinars all the time. There's so many different little psychological angles to this. So, but I think we've hit the high points. Plan. Give yourself a couple days to sort of be planning what this menu is going to look like. Pin your ears back and look at the fact that there's only a finite number of problems to solve. Once we get those resolved and we got it in our plan, what we're going to be eating, make sure we're all set to go from the day that we begin. And the beauty of this is that if you really plan this and do this well, you'll find something happen. You'll get an extra benefit that you don't see coming. And that is that if you go 10 days and you do an exemplary job, your self-esteem mechanism will pay you back for this. Self-esteem mechanism is watching you. It's watching what you do. And if you do a so-so job, it will give you so-so self-esteem. If you do a lousy job, it will give you a lousy self-esteem feedback. And if you do an exemplary job, the self-esteem mechanism will not begin by patting your own back, because it's never impressed by a couple, 3 days of effort. But in 10 days of effort, it is impressed. 10 days of effort is enough for the self-esteem mechanism to believe that you really accomplished something that wasn't trivial. And as a result, your self-esteem will rise in 10 days automatically. You can't stop it. It will be an automatic byproduct of doing this. And so that's the important message that is not talked about often. People think that self-esteem comes from self-talk. It doesn't come from anything of the kind. Self-esteem comes from an internal observation of your behavior. You couldn't care less about what the chatter is inside your head. The chatter inside your head is irrelevant to the self-esteem mechanism. In fact, the self-esteem mechanism is emanating that chatter. In other words, these are deep logical mechanisms inside the system, sort of commenting on what it thinks, how well it thinks you're doing. The only way to change it for the positive is not to say positive things to yourself, but rather to earn positive things to emanate from the self-esteem mechanism by very diligent behavior. Okay, it is not easily impressed, because your self-esteem mechanism knows what you're capable of. And so it knows you're capable of putting together a healthy meal and eating it, but it doesn't trust the fact that that's going to mean anything, because by midnight you could be eating crap. Okay? So it's slightest bit impressed with short-term changes. The changes have to be substantive enough that it recognizes that you have made actually excellent efforts and you made a lot of good choices when you had choices to do things differently. And it recognizes a track record. Okay? So you're a little bit like a naughty kid in school right now. And if that naughty kid has one decent day, the teacher's not at all impressed. But if that naughty kid does 2 weeks in a row where he does a really good job, suddenly the teacher is starting to recognize that something has changed. And so that is the wind at your back that starts to develop after you have done about 10 days. Okay?
So even if you don't lose, like, in the last challenge we had somebody who really tried, put the effort in, went to the gym. Now we know that's not right. But went to the gym. She really tried. She put in the effort, but she didn't lose that much weight.
And the fact that she lost anyway, she did not understand that. The truth is, I wouldn't expect her to lose that much weight in 10 days. If you lost 1 pound, which would be hard to detect on a common scale, right? But if she lost 1 pound in 10 days, that means that she would lose 36 pounds in 365 days. Okay? Right. That would mean that was on the pace to lose 36 pounds of fat in a year. That's phenomenal. And it wouldn't have taken any substantive exercise to do it. So this is people are thinking that they're going to lose 5 or 10 pounds.
Right.
That this is how you lose weight. They think that that's what can happen. Yeah, it isn't what happens. That's what happens on Slim Fast when you go from a conventional diet loaded with sodium, and you go to sucking down chocolate shakes for a week that don't have any sodium in them, and you diurese and lose 10 pounds of water. You don't lose any fat at all. You lose 10 pounds of water. And 1 potato chip and a few glasses of water later, and you've gained the 10 pounds back. So this is the yo-yo game that they play in the modern weight loss arena, and people are miscalibrated now into what it actually is required to lose a pound of fat. What's required to lose a pound of fat is sustained diligence in dietary behavior. That's what it takes.
So it's the change. So you're changing it for your health.
Changing it for your health, you're changing it for your weight, for your vanity, for your beauty, for your sex appeal. I don't care what you're changing for. But I can tell you that the only thing that's going to change is you're going to have to change the dietary content for what it is that you're eating, or you're not going to lose weight. If you do change that dietary content, you will lose weight. The question is how fast, and the answer to that is depends upon where you came from. Right. If you came from a horrendous diet and you go to a good diet, you'll lose weight pretty quickly. If you come from a pretty good diet and we're tightening it up, you're going to lose weight slowly. You're already close to, you're a B student and we're heading for an A.
Right.
Not that big a difference in your grade point average.
Right.
If you're a D student and you head for an A, then we're going to find a phenomenal difference in your grade point average. And so people that are expecting that they're going to lose 4 or 5 pounds in a week, you're not going to lose 4 or 5 pounds. Even if it shows up on the scale, you didn't lose 4 or 5 pounds. You lost 3 pounds of water and 1 pound of fat.
Right.
And the next 10 days, you won't lose those pounds of water because they're already gone. Because you're on a lower sodium diet. But you'll lose another pound of fat. But here's the problem. If you eat a little bit of more sodium, you can gain 3 pounds of water the next week.
Right. So you have this yo-yo going back.
You could have lost another pound of fat, increased your water by 3 pounds, and feel like you gained 2 pounds of fat even though you did quite well, which you didn't. Okay, so this is the fiasco of being a scale monkey that's watching the score all the time.
Right.
Instead of simply putting your head down and realizing we're making a major change in the macronutrients of the diet towards whole natural foods that are not rich. Right. That's what we do. And what happens to the scale from day to day or from week to week is irrelevant. The scale will tell the story in the long run. This is like trying to analyze the stock market for the next year or watching what happens in the next hour. It's a total waste of time. The stock market could go straight up for the next hour, and then you put all your money in there, and then it turns out the stock market's on a downward trend. Like, of course we wouldn't do that, but people are desperate to get this feedback and show evidence that they're on the right track.
Right.
And so you have to know that there's no amount of feedback evidence that we're going to give you that will be the inspirational factor, because you're trying to change your behavior in a direction that is unnatural. So it's not going to seem right, and you can't lose weight fast enough to tell. So what you instead need to do is settle in, and you have to trust a theory. And you have to say, I'm going to trust this theory. I'm going to run an experiment, and I'm going to trust this theory. And for the next 90 days, this is what I'm going to do. We'll start with 10. See if you can survive it. See if you can plan for it and execute it. But then in 90 days, trust me, the scale will be down. The scale will be down substantially, because 90 days on a healthier diet is enough for that to really show up, and it's unmistakable. Right. And so, but it's quite mistakable from week to week. So that's an important lesson. Okay?
Well, you have given us so much information. Thank you. I can't say thank you enough.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Good luck to everybody. And if people have questions, they can feel free to write to me.
And connect with you at esteem.com.
Yes, esteemdynamics.org.
My bad.
All of my contact information is there. Okay?
Thank you.
Very good. Good luck with all.
Okay.